Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Revitalise Meets, the chance where I get the opportunity to meet business professionals, entrepreneurs, and key influencers from across the global business network community. And as part of this YouTube channel series, we really delve into finding out a bit more about the business connection. Now, today we've got the great pleasure, stroke, hence privilege, to be meeting up with this gentleman once again. He's been a great support to many people across the country and also across the globe. He's been helping people with e-learning, websites, you name it, online, he's covering it. Can you please welcome with me and with us all today, the one but the only, unfortunately, is Mr. John Loudon from Hybrid Anchor. John, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks very much for the introduction. If anyone knows how to do cloning, do give me a shout.
Thanks very much, John. Thank you. Well, again, thanks for joining. But again, what we'd like to start off with for everybody who's watching and listening today, we'd like to really delve into a bit about your business journey, where you came from and where you are right now, if you don't mind sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem. So some people will know this story, but for those that don't, networking is actually a big reason why I'm in business today. So I had a successful freelance career out with my kind of core job. I worked full time as a head of design. So I had that as a job. I was a lecturer. I was a freelancer. So I was basically like a workaholic, working all the time, as many of us are when we become entrepreneurs. But it was actually a networking event I went along to, and someone kind of clocked the fact that I still had a full-time job. And I always thank them for this, but it was quite a intense kind of conversation we had. It's like, so if I'm getting this right, you're making more revenue doing your freelance than you are from your day job. And I says, oh, definitely, like, you're massively over it. And it's like, so why are you not quitting then? And I was like, well, I need to get the savings in the bank. And I just had this idea, right? And people that are starting their business journey, they'll be very familiar with this psychology, but I want to save 3 months, maybe 6 months, and that'll give me a bit of a buffer. And, I've just had a kid. And when you actually look at it, no business kind of operates like that, right? You can't save your way to a successful business. And that's what the guy said. But the way he said it was genius. He just turned around to me and he went, no, you're absolutely right, Lee. Absolutely right. Business owners, their wives don't get pregnant. They don't have mortgages to pay. You're right. They just save their money and then they do their business. And when the money runs out, they just go out of business. And it was really quite profound because I thought, I'm actually being ridiculous and I'm giving myself an excuse. So I know that now, actually understanding more about self-reflection. But I quit my job that day. So I handed in my notice on a pretty high-end job where you're working with a lot of premium clients, worked my 3 months notice and basically started a company. Right out the gate, I hired 3 staff. I took on a studio, like a premise. And why did I do that? The only reason I'd done that was because I wanted to get it out of my system. I'd read in business books that 2 of the big barriers are, well, 3. 1 is jumping out on your own, becoming self-employed. That's a huge barrier to entry. Second is taking on staff, hiring people, paying wages, being responsible for people. So I thought if you hire 3 people at the same time, that's definitely getting that out of your system. And then committing to a lease. So it's almost like I'd almost like burnt my bridges. I'd purposely put myself in a scenario where if you fail, you have nothing to fall back on, right? And it's like, I remember my mum saying to me as well, going, oh, what if it doesn't work out for you, John? Like, what if you don't do that? And I says, you're absolutely right. I'll not have a career. Nobody will remember I worked for 16 years in the sector. It'll just be like I'm starting again. I'll probably be like, a burger flipper or a bin cleaner man, or, like I'll just have to go in a completely different direction because, and you're like, well, that's not realistic, is it? That's not how that's going to work. So fast forward from there, that was 6 years ago, jumped out. I've since built companies, sold companies, taken over divisions of companies. And where we sit today is Hybrid Anchor, which is a digital transformation company. So right now I have 5 staff, if you include me. And I've also got an investment company where we are actively acquiring or investing into businesses to the side of that. So it's been a really exciting kind of journey. But if you look at it, really it's networking and sort of being honest with yourself as well. When someone challenges you, I think most days kind of, we get a bit defensive and we don't want to be challenged, but that's where growth comes from. So someone observing that in you, try to look at that as the gift it is, because what they're trying to do there is share something that they've discovered. And I think that's a massive thing in like any business's journey.
It is indeed. Some good points you shared on there as well, John, especially from the networking stance about who you've met and in sharing those ideas in a collaborative way. whereas somebody can actually see what you're doing and then actually see it from another perspective, that third eye of thinking you're in a position now to actually go and work for yourself and take it to the next level. And I remember going back many years ago when I first met you, seeing you in that position and bumping into each other at various different networking events. You were quite wondering how I got in there in many places sometimes, but I eventually got past the door, the gatekeepers, I should say, really, to get in there. But network has played a massive part in your journey, and it's great to hear that and how that's transpired and where you are right about now. Moving on, the next part of really today was I want to find it a little bit about what's been your biggest challenge over the past couple of years, and how has that challenge transferred or materialized into an achievement or success? How would you share that?
Yep, I think there's two, so I'm going to be sneaky and do two, but they're kind of joint in some way. So we'll do that loosely so we can fit them in. But I think the first thing is cash flow. So generating cash flow in a business, I think, is so key. And it's such a challenge that a lot of us face. So I talk to business owners every other day. Some of them are in a great place and they've got banks of money and they're just really well established. But people forget what it's like for a startup, especially if you're in this kind of market. So you're launching a business, you don't know, you don't have a network, you don't have anyone around you, and you've got to generate that run rate. So let's say you're paying yourself, £3,000 a month. You need to generate that money plus your running cost every single month. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. And I think that's a big thing for employees to understand when they jump into that. You are responsible for that. So people have this aversion to commission-only sales jobs. Being a business owner is like that on steroids, right? So yes, there can be a massive payoff, but you must build that payoff. So I think one of the biggest challenges for me was to really sort of reprogram my mind to look at how could I build sustainable relationships? How could I move my business towards retainers and ongoing work, coaching, consultancy, things that will consistently drop income into my bank, but also allow me to exchange what I give the customer as a value exchange. So that's then linked to building a team. If you look at any successful person, yes, there's a couple of exceptions that have exceptionally strong lifestyle businesses. The majority of people in this world that make serious wealth or build a sustainable company, they have a team, having someone to pass that to. We were talking in the sort of like the precursor to this today about videos, and, we have a YouTube series, and how we do that is, yeah, sure. At the start, I would make the thumbnails, I come up with the content, I create the flip charts, but I try to outsource parts of it. So if I can't afford an employee, I try and pay a subcontractor. I try and build a partnership and maybe exchange a service. You work out what it is you need to do. So what's the goal? And then working back from it, what do I need to get there? But also trying to make sure that you're not part of that process. So a lot of business owners, and that was a big lesson for me, I in essence gave myself another job. And even right now, I am on the tools to a large degree. But I can also see how I would be away from there as I build out the team. There'll be less need for a John to say, right, these tasks sit here with me as the owner. So that would be my two big lessons that I kind of learned. Challenges wise are cash flow. And I think the answer to that is to build a sort of retainer, residual income based business, either as a product or a package. And secondly, is to build a great team. So the strength of your business largely comes down to the people within it. So you'd be much better having a team. We've got a social media post going out about this, but it's the idea of like have a team so strong that people don't know who the boss is. And I think like that's something that sat with me for a long, long time.
That's a really good point as well, John. I like the thought behind that. A lot of business owners don't think about the cash flow, and then they don't sort of split out the segments or the buckets, their services or offerings and products that they have available. They think it's all under one umbrella. You need to position in the right way, and especially surrounding yourself with key players, key team players who can work with you, who you can delegate those sort of roles and jobs to. But it's true what you say, they don't know who the boss is because the team is so strong, that you've got around you. I think there's some great points there to share. Thanks for sharing that, John.
No problem.
We talk about adapting. You live on an online world as such, really. And we both came from an in-person type of industry, meeting people, having those conversations. Remember these days, passing business cards to one another, right? You remember those ones? Now it's cool. What were they again? But it's literally, we are now in a hybrid world. How have you adapted your business over the last few years of really embracing online and offline in getting your business out there?
So I think this is a great one for me. So when I launched Hybrid Anchor, part of the reason why it's called Hybrid Anchor is because that kind of phenomenon that's happening in the market. So people were like me and like you, we were everywhere. We were omnipresent. We were at all the networking meetings under the sun. I have no idea how you got yourself into some of those VIP events that were like invitation only. Had to be alumni. Lee's still there. No idea how he gets in. He's probably bribing the janitor with the fivers at the back or something. But when you look at that, like, so I was on that kind of side of the fence. So despite being a digital kid, you know, somebody that grew up with the internet, grew up with computers, I've always been in that technology space. I am at my heart a people person. I care much more about relationships. I find it cool to meet people and get to know what they're doing with their business. That just really interests me. I would actually say that borderline, probably not even borderline, but I probably like sank into like a deep depression, like when that all got shut down and taken away, because it was almost as if like someone had removed your superpower. If you take energy from a room, you ever seen those guys at like gigs and stuff, and they're like that with the hands, and they're like taking energy for the, you know, you can just see that, like, because that crowd is there chanting, they're taking energy from it. That's what I'm like when I meet people. So when I'm not having a coffee with you or Brian or any of the other kind of Revitalise members, I'm taking energy for that, and I'm thinking, yeah, these are all positive people. You know, that's right, it is a positive market. But when you don't have that, I think there's a danger that you slip back into this idea of just sort of like, right, I'm back in a one horse race again. It's my journey. You know, you kind of shut down your support network. But then looking at it like with a fresh pair of eyes, when I started Hybrid, I looked at the market and I thought, well, wait a minute, where are all these people? So where are all the people that were like me? And that's what I should have done right at the start. I should have looked at it and said, where did they all go? So networking's bigger than it's ever been. And actually it's more international than it's ever been. There's various things that you can do. You can jump into America, Canada, Japan, Asia. You can have staff in different countries. You can communicate on a level that had just never been seen. And the pressure has kind of like expedited that growth. So if we look at things like Zoom and these kind of meetings, it's fantastic to see what people have done. But I now look at it in the sense of like, right, what do I need for me personally? So I still do need face-to-face. It's an important part of my life. But I can have someone over here for a coffee. I can attend a physical networking meeting, but I can also substitute that and put in a couple of online meetings only. So there's some networking that I do that's purely online, and I hope it never goes face-to-face. And there's other ones that are face-to-face. So I've basically struck a bargain with myself, a hybrid, if you will, a balance between online and offline. And I think that's been really amazing for the growth of our business, because as much as I love in-person networking, we all remember that drudgery of driving from place to place to place to place. And then some of us kind of clock on and you go, there has to be a smarter way than this. What I'll do is I'll sit in the Courtyard by Marriott or the Village Hotel so you basically camp out in a hotel all day. And you're like, well, actually those kind of meetings that are like that, they could just be online now. And then if you're thinking, do you know what, Lee, we've actually had a few conversations. Do you fancy a dinner? Or do you fancy a lunch? And then we can start to like build more of that social side.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about that hybrid model.
Yeah, I think it's the way you can actually build that together now, and especially the way you say it has opened up so many doors of opportunity. Whereas we've now got this hybrid world where we can actually jump in online to anywhere you want during each day of the week. You can jump on an evening call to get into a time difference in the States or Canada as such as well. And I think it's given us more tools and more sort of in the toolbox to use when we're out and about, especially now in hybrid offering now. So thank you for sharing that one. One of the biggest questions of today's interview really is about the sort of golden top 3 tips. And we really talk about the subject of today is like e-learning, you know, looking how to develop your e-learning structure to get more probably personal development and business development for you. What would be your top golden 3 tips to people who are watching and listening out there to really cover e-learning and beyond?
It's a great question. Looking at your top 3, there's lots of things you could pull from. The 3 biggest that I think are, when you're kind of building a course, I think it's always to base the content on learning outcomes. And what I mean by that is a lot of us, we have that subject matter expertise. So we know our topic, but then we can be really guilty of kind of like waffling our way through it, or kind of like doing a Stephen King is what I would say, is like you start the book and then you just write continuously until you feel it's the end of the book. That's fantastic. And if we were always talented as Stephen King, it probably wouldn't matter. But for the rest of us mere mortals, we do need to think about what is the purpose of that course? Like, what are you actually trying to train? So let's just say it was like, my objective here is to train you how to drive a car. So I need to start thinking about, right, you're going to need to know the functions of the car. So that's probably like a block. But then what are the learning outcomes of that? You need to know how a clutch works. You need to know how an accelerator works. You need to know what happens when you stall a car, that it's actually okay and you can fix that scenario. So you need to know a certain amount of things. So when I'm building an e-learning course or working with a client, one of the big things I said to them is, don't think about the content, think about the structure of your course, but then very quickly get on to what are the actual lessons you're trying to teach. Because I think by doing that, then that acts as a filter against your actual course content, where you say, am I teaching this guy how to function the car, or am I actually waffling about other things that are maybe not relevant to the functions of the car, which could be counterintuitive because I'm distracting them. The second tip I would give is when you're dealing with volumes of data. So I always look at e-learning. If the person's pulling their material from slide decks, their e-learning generally ends up as like a series of lists. If they're pulling it from blog content, it ends up being a series of very long articles. And I see it all the time. And I kind of look at it as that analogy we say to kids, how do you eat an elephant? That's very difficult, but what you would actually do is you would break it down into small chunks. So you would eat it piece by piece. And I think by taking something like, here is my idea, there's my learning outcomes, and then thinking about what are the logical pieces that are necessary and cutting away quite a lot of the noise, because it's not a blog and it's not a presentation and it's not a podcast. So when you're repurposing content, it's really, really important to make sure you're analysing it and saying, is this adding to the course, or am I adding waffle for the sake of adding content? And the best courses are the ones that are in kind of nice, well thought out, articulated blocks.
Yeah.
The last one, and maybe it should be the first one, but if you're considering doing a course, the question I would have is, are you likely to make money from the course? So that kind of pulls us back a little bit, and it puts a bit of analysis in the sense of, why are we building it? Are we building it for exposure? So many of us write a book or create a course for exposure. It's a marketing tool. Or are we actually doing it to make income? So if you're unsure that you'll make income from a course, what I would kind of advise is, have a look at what you're doing just now. So let's just say you're a coach and a consultant like me or like Lee. Are people coming to you and saying, I would love to engage you for your coaching and your consultancy? Do you do one-to-one training? Do you have any programs or materials that we could go through? I've seen you in a public talk talking about blah. So they have already identified you as a subject matter expert in that area. Those are the people that should build courses, because those are the people that have a sort of critical mass assembled for it. Now, if you're not in that position, you can still do that. So maybe you should start a podcast, start blogging, start public speaking, build up your expertise, but that's the audience that's going to engage in your content. So it's almost like the chicken before the egg thing. You have to build an audience, otherwise you'll launch your course to crickets. So you spend all this time creating this beautiful book or this beautiful course, you launch it, and then you're kind of surprised that only your friends and family under duress are the people that buy it. That was never who it was intended for. So try to think about that in advance. It takes a long time to build a course or a book. So you have a long time to build up your list and build up your marketing around that topic, so that when you launch it, it's like, I've actually waited for this, really. This is great. I'm going to sign up to that.
Yeah.
That would be my 3 golden tips.
Really good tips. And especially when you think about the chunks or putting it to segments and working out how that course curriculum is going to be delivered as well. And I love that last one. Many people don't think about the investment, or don't think of the return on investment from the work that's been put into place as well. So some really good pointers there to share, really, John. I hope everyone's watching and listening is writing those down. If not, you'll see them in a post or 2 coming out in the next couple of weeks anyway, with those little areas. So thanks for sharing your golden top 3 tips, John. You read a lot of books, you do a lot of self-reflection. The question I like to ask many people when they come along to Revitalise Meets is, how do you self-reflect more now than ever? And is it designed around training? Is it designed around people's knowledge? Is it audible? Is it book related? How does your self-reflect work for you? Just as we come near to the end.
Absolutely brilliant question again. So for us, it's different ways of looking at it. Sorry, just clear my throat. Right. So what I've got systems in place that are going to help me constantly keep that there. So I would always advise a business to have a coach, have someone there as a soundboard, and their job is to sanity check what you're kind of going through so that you don't believe your own sort of like magic, if you will. So if you kind of subscribe to that law of attraction, we can convince ourselves that like, right, I'm really successful, I'm doing this kind of thing, this is all great. But in reality, we're probably missing things where, you know, we're growing in areas where that's actually against your mission. And kind of like we were talking there about learning outcomes, I think it's actually very similar with business goals. So people that plan out their business plan or their strategy, like here's where I want to get to this year, their coach can act as that person to sort of like keep them on the right kind of path going, is this actually something that's helping you achieve that goal, or is it a distraction? It's a distraction, so why are we doing it? That's one of the ways. Another way that I do it is I am a profuse reader. So I read probably about 98 books per year. I'm a massive advocate of reading. Sadly, it's not all business books. Like I read other things as well. I read books in economics, history, fantasy, sci-fi, lots of different topics just because I'm interested in literature anyway. But in a business sense, I always make sure I've got one or two business books on the go. And I kind of make it my business to ask people in one-to-ones, you know, what have you read? So you recommended a book, Entrepreneurial You.
Right.
Fantastic book, really, really good content within it. And one of the methods I use just to kind of share that with anybody watching is I don't read it to read a chapter or I don't read it to read completion. I read it to pull out 3 golden nuggets. So once I have my 3, they go in a journal and then that's me. I can stop reading. Now I can continue on if I want, but I might actually get 3 nuggets in 1 paragraph, 1 page, 1 chapter, or half a book. But what that also does is by the end of it, when you put that book back in the shelf, you've got maybe a couple of pages of solid notes. And then the best thing, and the thing that I think a lot of us forget about, is execute. It's not about learning the thing, it's about executing on it. So see if you learn a strategy that was important enough to write down and you thought it was cool, try it out, do something with it, even if it's in a minimal way, try it. You know, if you read things like How to Win Friends and Influence People, try it in your next meeting, try it in your next phone call. You're not going to get it perfect, but at least then it will start to like kind of soak in to you. But I'm a big fan of that with books. I also think you can do the same thing with Audible. So I generally have a couple of books on the go with Audible, a couple of books I'm reading, and I kind of do chop and change. But I've always got that kind of approach to life. You know, I've got like one of our core values actually next to me here is never stop learning. And I think that's a big part of that is your education, your team's education. You're the best investment you'll ever make, like guaranteed. Like the best investment you'll get over your lifetime is by investing in your own self. So what courses can you go into? What mentors can you pay to share their knowledge? What can you kind of gain? So you'll be a sharper you in the future rather than sort of, I know it all. It's, you know, I don't make mistakes. I'm fine. And then you're like, well, that's why you're static. So that business will either flatline or it will start to dip.
I think there's some great points there. I love the part of action in it because I think there's so many people that will, you know, disconnect and read a book. I mean, I listen to Audible when I'm either running or walking or exercising, which I need to get back into again. But again, put the headphones on and just walk for a good half an hour, 45 minutes and jogging. You're just listening in and you can pick up some great gold nuggets. But that great point there is actually actioning some of the points that are in there, executing some of those points that are really prevalent that you've picked up from the book as well, John. I think that's some great golden nuggets once again shared in that little part of it for us all. Thank you very much for chatting to us today. Again, it's always great to reconnect and just to see where you are and what's going on. For everybody who's watching and listening today, how can they make contact with John Loudon? How can they organize their virtual cup of coffee, or even if they're in the area, you put the kettle on, you make a cup of coffee?
That's it. So you're always welcome to drop by the office. Obviously, give me a heads up because generally I'm in calls or in meetings. But we're based out in Coatbridge, so I'm right across the road from Albion Rovers, although you wouldn't know it with the blinds down. Or you can reach out to me online. So I'm on LinkedIn. Our main website is hybridanchor.com. All the social media links are down the bottom. If you're watching YouTube, like you're watching right now, I've got 2 great channels, Business Belters, which is a business podcast, which you're more than welcome to come along. And I try to share everything I've learned about business in a kind of longer format where we kind of like exchange that between me as a conversion rate optimized kind of specialist and a marketing company. So you get that contrast. But also on my main channel, Hybrid Anchor TV, you'll get a lot of that kind of content. So if you're interested in it, you're more than welcome to subscribe. Please remember to subscribe for Revitalise as well and smash Lee's like button, because that'll actually help out his business a lot. It's really hard to engage with a YouTube audience, but that helps more than you know. Or drop down an insight, a thoughtful comment. What's your golden nugget that you've kind of found from working in that market? Do you know anything about e-learning? If you share it in the comments, we'll catch you down there.
Brilliant, John. Thank you very much. And I highly recommend everybody who's watching and listen to reach out to John either via all the different platforms you've just heard there, especially on LinkedIn and beyond, and subscribe to his channel to hear about more of the wealth of knowledge that he's got within the industry that he's part of, especially from an e-learning side of your business, if you're looking to embrace that a lot more. John, thanks so much once again. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much to everybody who's been watching and listening today. Stay tuned, as there's going to be many more Revitalise Meets interviews coming over the next few weeks. Subscribe to the channel, to the Revitalise Connecting People, to be stayed in tune. Every week there's going to be a new video, either from our Revitalise Meets or some more knowledge-based videos coming very, very soon. Thanks again for watching. Thank you for listening. We look forward to seeing you back next time to hear from one of our fabulous business entrepreneurs, business professionals, or key influencers from across the global network. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you very soon. Take care, stay safe, and as always, keep connecting, everybody. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, guys.